Dr. Saina.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay. So today I'm going to take two lectures or two sessions. One is results, and the other one is the discussion. As you know, we've gone through the introduction. We've also looked at how to write the review of literature part. So the next two sessions, which are really important, is the results and the discussion. So today it will be a little bit longish, and you have to bear with me because if I have to give it in any form of you know uh, in any form of detail, then it has to be a little longish. So my acknowledgements to Dr. Ravindran as well as Dr. Manikandan. They were my former colleagues when I was working in JIPMER. And we have taken a great many sessions on this. So the net result is that there's a lot of input from both of them. So uh, that's acknowledged. So if you look at the IMRAD format, which we discussed, last time, introduction, methods, results, and discussion. The results answers the question, what did you find? So that's the reason why we write the results section, because it will give the reply to the question, what did you find? So that is about the results. So what do we do in this section? We report the findings of the study, which is based on the information which you have gathered, which is again based on the methodology or methodologies which have been applied. So that is what is given here. So in this session, my objectives will be, one is to list what are the key elements of the results section. Also to give you some guidelines how to construct a proper table or figure. Then third is what are the golden rules for reporting numbers. And then, of course, how to write a clear and concise results section. So these are my objectives. So if you ask someone what is the most important part of the research paper, it will be the results section. And why is it so? It is because this is the section to which the answer to the research question is given in the results section. So that is why it is considered the most important part of the research paper or a thesis. And many people like to read the results because if they are interested in reading the paper at all, they want to know what you have found. So they look at it very carefully. But it also has its own implications. The implications are, if you write a good results section, which is very clear and concise, paper will be easily accepted. Second thing is your peers give more attention to this because you want to know what has happened in your study. And thirdly, if there are a lot of mistakes, then your science is suspect. Many times people will reject a paper if there are a lot of mistakes which they can pick up from the results section. So for all these reasons, the results section is an extremely important part. So you have to make sure that it is written very, very carefully. So what are the ABCs of the result section? First is accuracy, second is brevity, and third is clarity. This is known as the ABC. Now, I just want to tell you, actually, brevity and clarity are both, if you want to be very brief, you will lose out on clarity a little bit. But these are generally known as the ABCs of the results section. Now, there are three parts to writing the results. Okay? And this is where you need to get it right. The first part is you need to write about the baseline characteristics. So this is the first part of writing the results. The second part is where you will answer the research questions. So all the results which go towards answering your research question will go into the second part. And the third part is for you to describe other findings. Sometimes there might be unexpected findings. There may be coincidental findings and so on. So these are the three parts of a research results section. First, baseline characteristics. Second, answer to the research question. Third is to describe your other findings. So let's look at the elements of results. So you can always, the results section is written with three elements. The first is text, the second is tables, and the third is figures. These are the three things which are called the elements of your results section. So the text actually tells the story. The tables summarizes the, sorry, I just come back. Hello? No, I'm on a webinar. I can't be interrupted. With Ames Patna, I'm on the webinar. I can't be interrupted. Yeah. Okay, bye. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So the text tells the story, the tables summarizes the evidence, and the figures actually highlight the main findings. So these are the three elements. Text will tell the story, the table will summarize the evidence, and figures is used to highlight the main findings. If you keep this in mind, generally you will have a good results section. So I just use a paper. I just picked it off just like that. It is from the New England Journal of Medicine. This is the title of the paper. So I'm using the results section of this paper to highlight the three things. So text, as you can see, there is a lot of text which is written. So this is how they are writing the results section, right? Now, they also have tables. So in the results section of this paper, they are also using tables to give the results, to produce results. And figures may be anything. Figures could be a graph, it could be a photograph, it could be algorithm, it could be diagram. So any of these things would be considered as a figure. And in this paper, which we saw in NEJM, there are lots of figures also included in the results section. Okay, so text, table, and figures. Now, so you might ask me, how do we arrange or organize the results? So how do we do it? You have to design the section as if you were telling a story. So the results are the story of what you did, whatever methodologies you did. The result is the story of what you did in your thesis. Okay, so it has to be designed as if you're telling a story. Set it chronologically. So start chronologically, continue logically till the end. And then you have to use a mixture of all the three elements, text, tables, and figures to tell this story, right? So you don't tell the story only with text or only using tables or only using figures. All three have to be used judiciously and it has to be given chronologically and logically. So I'm again using the same paper to describe this. So if you look at the result section of this paper, initially what do? They start about the participants. So I told you results have three parts. Part one is what is the baseline characteristics. So the baseline data or baseline results, baseline characteristics are described initially. Because if you see, they are starting off between this time and this time. So from the earliest part of their study till the latest date, they are giving a story. So this is part one. What is part two? Part two is to answer the research question. So their results are written like that. So there is part one, there is part two. If you read later on, there is also a part three. So they have written text. Now in this, they are using text and they're also using a figure. If you see here, they're talking about figure one, which is telling about some injections which they received and all that. Later on, they're also talking about a table. Okay, they're describing some participants and they are saying table one and table S2. So they are describing the results in text, in figures, and in tables. Part one comes initially where they're describing the participants or their baseline data. Part two is the part where they are describing the results to the research question. It is written chronologically because I told you they're starting from when they started till when they ended, and they are using a mixture of all these three. So this is how it will, this thing. Why am I saying chronological? Because they started here and cutoff date was October 9th, they're saying. So the story is continuing. Okay. So this is something which you must remember. And it, I told you the results have to be a judicious mix of text, table, and and figures. So as you can see, they have used text, they have used figures here, and they have used tables. Okay, right. So how to start organizing the results? You also have to prepare something called dummy tables. And this can be prepared, you ask your residents to prepare this well before you have started writing the thing. Because once you start analyzing the data, it is good for you to prepare the dummy tables. This is the first step in writing the results. You may ask me, what are dummy tables? Dummy tables are nothing but they are planned tables and figures which you will plan to put into your thesis or paper. It's only an outline of a table or figure. So you imagine this part of the results I will put as figure. This part I will give it as a table. This part I will write as a text. So planned tables and figures, they are known as dummy tables. They only have an outline and empty cells. Afterwards, once you finish all the data analysis, you can populate the dummy tables. It is something like this, so even the heading is not complete, but you know what are the things which you want to write. What is the number? So primary outcomes are these, secondary outcomes are these. This will be N. This is the placebo group. There are two groups, and then you start populating. So these dummy tables need to be made. Now, how do you write it? To write it, you start by characterizing the study participants. I told you three parts, and part one is you characterize the study participants. That is the baseline data. Okay. So why do you do that? Because you want to know how representative this was, your baseline data. So if you have more than one group, you have to say whether they are comparable. And you always use a table to describe baseline characteristics. So this is the baseline characteristics, which is the part one of the results. So generally we say if there were males and females in a group, you say males and so many females. Now, if you have a sentence like this, the group consisted of 41 males and 37 females, how will you project this data in your results? Will you write it like this? Will you put a bar chart or will you give it as a pie? Anyone? Can you please unmute and tell me? How will you represent this information that the group had 41 males and 37 females? Anyone?
Pie chart.
Pie is the best.
Pie is the best. Why do you think it is the best?
Visually we can.
Exclusive.
It is visually you can see it.
Okay. It's mutually exclusive.
Pardon?
It's mutually exclusive, either male or female. So that it's clear.
No, but that is even this is mutually exclusive.
Proportion is clearly visible.
Okay. Now let me tell you. Generally, do not use a pie chart to denote male-female ratio. The reason is whenever you are putting some information, especially if you are writing a paper, the editors want to save space, right? So what will go in one line like this you don't have to spend 5 or 6 lines, which will be the amount of space which is taken up, including the title and everything. So at least quarter page will go for something like this. This sentence gives the same information that this pie chart is giving or this is giving. So though very commonly, in almost all the theses, they will give a pie chart. This is not the approved method of simply giving a male-female ratio or the male-female numbers. Okay. Now, if you will find lots of representation like this, it's very vivid. If you see it, 63% males, 37% females. But this is mainly used for public information. So if you see in the lay press, you see this India Today or the Week magazine and all that, the graphics are extremely well done. This is for lay information or the lay press. This is not to be used in thesis where we are trying to look at academic or scientific information. Okay. So the second part I'm going to go is now how to construct a table. Now I have told you where you need to put a table like your baseline characteristics, how do you construct a table? Every table should have a table number and a title, no doubt about it. The table number should be continuous throughout the thesis. Supposing you make a table in the review of literature, that will be table number 1. Or somewhere even in your introduction, if you want to have a table, that will be table number 1. So what comes in your results will be table number 2. So the table number will be continuous. It is not that for this section, this is table number 1. Okay. The title of the table should be short, but it should be complete. For example, you can say something like baseline characteristics of the study participants. This is an acceptable table. If you say efficacy endpoints of both groups, this is short, but it is incomplete, right? Efficacy of salbutamol in patients with mild to moderate bronchial asthma after 8 weeks of therapy as compared to salbutamol. So something like this, because the title of the table should be complete, so that somebody reading it should not be in any doubt what information is contained in the table. So title should be short, but it should be complete. So in this paper, which I was giving you as an example in NEJM, you can see there is a table number, and this table number should be in Arabic numerals, right? So this is the title. This is short, but this is a complete title. And this, what you see here, no? So these are columns, these are rows, and the column heading here, the first column heading, this is called a sub, because this explains what is going on below. And then you have the various columns. Okay. So this treatment assignment, respiratory support received, these are called column headings. And these which you can see, dexamethasone, usual care, all these are column subheadings. Because under this column, treatment assignment, dexamethasone and usual care, you are having treatment under this column, you are having 2 sub-columns. So this will be subheadings of the column, these sub-columns. Okay. Similarly, this is a column heading, and you have 3 column subheadings. So this is how you make it. Now, the second part. So the table number of all tables should be quoted in the text. Please, I have to take this, so I'm just sorry. Yeah? Just excuse me. I'm very sorry. Can you just give me 1 minute? I will just, this thing, is that all right?
It's okay.
Sadhana, just give me 2 minutes.
Yes,
This is an urgent call which I have to take. Yeah.
Absolutely fine, ma'am. No issues, please.
Okay. Just, I'll just come back in about a minute.
It's okay. It's okay.
Did anybody else also find difficulty in joining today's program? I had to register around 8-10 times.
ये registration वाला थोड़ा issue है. Whenever you want to join, you have to again register. Every time you open the mail,
Dr.
I think
Shamshad,
technical.
I didn't find it difficult. It was in
मेरा भी एक बार में हो गया.
Okay, I'm back.
No, there is issue with a lot of issues. there are a lot of issues with the server. There is a firewall update also. There is a firewall update being done. So सबके laptops में और mobiles में दिक्कत हो रही है. And they had not mailed us. I called Mr. Rahul to mail everyone. So he has now mailed that the firewall is updating. So many of the websites are not opening.
Okay, okay.
The
So
problem,
probably this is the reason that many of us are not here in,
Yes,
in this.
everybody had problems, ma'am. And there are still people who are struggling to join.
is it because we are using the?
Yes?
Do you
Is it
want to
because
do
we
it
are?
on another day?
No, ma'am.
No, I
We will
think, how many participants are there? There are
We have only
37.
37 this time.
Mm.
ये
Yesterday
firewall
when
का
we started,
We have
I was
joined
asking
through
you.
personal hotspot, and every time any phone is coming, it is getting disconnected.
So let's
Okay,
continue
so
this.
let's continue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, ma'am.
Yeah. So the table number should be quoted in the text. Please make sure that, so you cannot have any tables which are not quoted in the text of the either the paper or the thesis. So all tables which appear in the thesis should be quoted in the text. Okay, they should be cited in the text. So one of the common ways we write is in the text we write baseline characteristics of the study participants are provided in table 1. Or please see table 1 for baseline characteristics of the study participants. This is not a good way of writing. Okay, so conventionally, this is not to be one of the ways in writing. You should write it like this. Diabetes, this is just an example. Diabetes mellitus and hypertension are the comorbid conditions of the participants. And the number of participants with these conditions are comparable between the two groups, table 1. Okay, so when you are citing the table in your text, you make it that there is a need to cite it, not that you are citing the table because you want to say that I have cited it. So that is the important part. And I'll just give you an example. Yeah. So the example is here. If you see here in this paper, how they are citing the table. The median age was 52 years and 42% of the participants were older than 55 years of age. Table 1 and table S2. So when you are wanting to cite the table within your text, this is the better way of citing it. Okay, I'll put it that way. So how do you construct a table? One is all columns should have a heading and there should not be any column. There should not be any column without a column heading. So all columns should have a. So this is the stub. This is the column heading, right? Now, if the name of the group is a column heading, then you should mention the sample size in parentheses. So this is standard therapy, new intervention. This is the name of the group. Therefore, you will put how many. What was the sample size? N is equal to 234. N is equal to 220. Okay. So this I'm just giving you as an example. You must inform the readers what was the sample size. That becomes very, very important. All columns should have a heading and the sample size should be measured. Okay. Now, the second thing is the unit for each variable should also be mentioned in parentheses, or if there is any, generally we put it in parentheses. For example, age in years, weight in kg. So again, this is the standard therapy. This is the age and this is the weight, plus minus standard deviation or standard error of the mean. Now, if you want to know how to get the units, for example, you can't simply write year as YRS or kg as capital K or kilo or something like that. There are uniform abbreviations which are accepted. You can see that in the APA publication manual. There are a lot of other places also where you can see what are the abbreviations, the units. Whenever you are using an abbreviation, what is the correct abbreviation you have to use? minutes, hours, so many weeks, months, for everything. So the units for all variables should be in parentheses and standard abbreviations should be used. So what are they doing in this paper? I'm using it as an example. You can see here they have mentioned age, sorry. Here they have mentioned age, as you can see, and here they're saying mean. So what they have cited is the mean, and this is the unit which they have used. You can see here they are saying sex and they are saying number. So what they have cited is the number. Within brackets, they have given the percentage. So when you are seeing less than 70 years, this is the number of people. This is the percentage of people. So everything is very clear. As I told you before also, this is the treatment assignment they have given. This is the group. Therefore, they have given the N. That is also given. Okay. So values to be aligned by decimal points or plus minus signs so that it is easy to read and compare. No cell should be left blank or marked. Okay. So aligning your cells is very important. Now, if you make superscripts, please, it has to be explained in the footnote. For example, P is less than 0.01 or P is less than 0.001. You should not write like this. Okay. The correct way of writing is P is less than this as compared to standard treatment group by students t-test. Simply writing like this is not advisable. You also should expand the abbreviations in the tables, even if your full form you've already provided in the text. So don't use abbreviations. If you're using abbreviations, it should be expanded in the footnote. The other issue about the table is you have to provide details about the data. So if you're giving a figure, are they mean or is it mode or is it median? So you have to say what about the data, or if it is mean plus or minus standard error. So you have to provide this data like this. Okay. So if you look at this, again, I'm telling you the same table I'm taking. Can you see here? They are saying plus minus values are means plus standard deviation. This is what I said. So provide details about the data. So when they're saying plus minus values, it is standard mean plus or minus standard deviation. They are expanding the abbreviations. Even HIV, they are expanding. IQR, they are expanding. Okay? And here they are writing about the P. They are saying there was a significant difference in the mean age between patients in the dexamethasone group and those in the usual care group. So they are simply not saying P is less than 0.01. Okay. They are also giving superscripts where whenever superscripts are given, they are explaining. Can you see? Here there is a superscript, severe kidney impairment, and there is a superscript, and they are explaining it. They're saying it is a GFR less than 30 ml per minute. Okay. So they would have certainly written what was severe kidney impairment in the methodology. But as I told you, a table has to be standalone. So you have to give the full explanation, right? That is why all these details are important. So coming to the golden rule for constructing tables and figures, one is it should stand alone. Reader should be able to interpret without needing to refer to text. Why is it? They should tend to skip the text and look at the tables and figures. That is why it should be standalone. Generally, when we read papers also, we look at the text and figures and try to figure it out. Therefore, it has to be standalone. Any other golden rule? Tables and figures should follow a sequence. Use the fewest number of tables and figures to tell the story. So journals have a restriction. Sometimes they will say we'll allow only 2 tables or 3 tables. So you need to use it judiciously to tell the story. Okay. Now, the second part. So the first part was about your baseline. Now let's look at the second part. That is to present answers to the main questions. You need to report results that support the hypothesis, and sometimes you might get something which refute it. So both should be there. So this is where you write about the research question. That is part number 2. Now, when you're writing in a paragraph in the thesis, one topic you please pen for a paragraph. So every paragraph, you start it with a topic sentence. Last time I told you what is a topic sentence. And one message should go in one paragraph. So the other thing which I want to say is if several variables are changing in the same direction, report that resulting change for all variables once. Instead of saying variable, there was no difference in height and weight, in height amongst the participants. Next, you will write, there was no difference in the heights of the participants in both groups. Number 3, there was no difference in the blood urea. So that should not be. So you give all the variables and then say there was no change. So now the third point which I want to say is avoid duplication of data in tables, text and figures. This is the next common mistake which we all do in the thesis. The same set of data is given as text, as table and as figure. In fact, people think that is how it should be reported. Any data should be reported only in one form. Okay, because that is all you want to do is you want to present that data, present the results. So you don't need to have it in 3 different forms. So don't write results are presented in tables 2 and 3 and don't state data without reporting the results. Data are factual findings, results state the meaning of the data. So describing results, one is that this is not the preferred way. In 14 untreated individuals, the mean blood glucose was this. In 16 patients treated with drug X, it was this. This is not the preferred way of describing results. In other way, it is better if you say the mean blood glucose was 50% lower in patients treated with drug X than in untreated individuals. Both are the same.
Is it audible to all of you? I can't hear the voice.
No, ma'am, there is some connection issue, I think.
Some connection
No, madam.
problem. What happened? Maybe it is from madam side.
Yes, yes.
It appears to be from that side.
Yeah, probably we should try it.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened? What
Yes,
happened?
ma'am. You were mute, ma'am.
I was muted for how long? Huh?
Yeah, you were not
Oh.
audible for a while, ma'am.
Last slide, ma'am. Since last slide.
Last slide.
This is the last slide only.
Just we would like to just see your slides, ma'am, please.
Okay.
There is
Let
some
me just.
connectivity issues here.
Hold on.
Ma'am, slide number 37.
37.
Yes.
Yeah, we were here. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Now can you hear me?
Before
Can you
that.
hear me now?
yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you, ma'am. But the
Okay, here we go from here.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So this is not the preferred way of writing a thesis. Both are same. There is no doubt. Both are same. But simply saying what this is, because the implication of the data is not obvious. See, in the results, you want to show what have you found, not just by recording the data, but what does it mean? So it means that 50%, the blood glucose was 50% lower in patients treated with drug X. And that comes out only if you write it like this. It is not seen if you simply say untreated individuals, this was it. In treated individuals, it was this. Okay. So how you write is very important. So this is a thesis in which you can see in one page, the same data is being given in 3 forms. This is the text. The same thing is given in the form of a table. And the same thing is given in the form of a graph. Okay. Now, all the 3 things are perfect. The text is fine, the table is fine, the graph is fine. But we do not have to tell in a thesis the same information need not be given in the three forms. You can decide in what way you want to give it and choose only that. So that is my point. Generally, results are reported in the past tense. You can use the present tense to refer to the tables and figures. The numeric results give numeric results not only as derivatives, for example, as percentages, but also as absolute numbers from which derivatives were calculated. Because sometimes you will find people will say 50%, 60%, and the numbers will be very, very small. So that is why you need to always give the absolute numbers. And don't use these words like markedly, majority, significantly. These are non-technical. If you say significant, it should be statistically significant. If you say correlated, it should be statistically correlated. Okay. So these are important things because we are writing a scientific paper. And you can look up the ICMJ recommendations. It's very clearly given there. So some golden rules for reporting numbers. Many of you will be very familiar with this. So if you are writing numbers less than 10, it should be written as words. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, you should write it as words. Don't put the figures. So in group A, 8 participants experienced hypoglycemia. Numbers of 10 or more can be written as numbers. Then don't begin a sentence with numbers. So you don't start with 120, but you should say 20 participants. So if you're starting a sentence, use a word, not numbers. Decimals should have a leading zero and no trailing zero. What do I mean? This is a leading zero. So if it is 0.05, then you should have a leading zero. But it should not be 0.0, it should not be 0.05. Right? You should have a leading zero. And there should be no trailing zero, means it should be 0.1 and not 0.10. Am I clear on that? So this is what decimals should have a leading zero, means before the decimal, you should have a zero if there is nothing else. If it is after the decimal, you don't need to have a trailing. Then use a space between the number and its unit. Blood glucose at baseline was 120 space milligram per deciliter. It is not 120 milligram per deciliter. There should be a space between this. There should be no space between number and percentage symbol. So 35% of participants, not 35 space percentage. Report percentage to only one decimal place. Mostly that is what is required. So in our sample, 212, 10.4% children were immunized, not 10.428. This is very, very common, where you give more, importance to what comes after the decimal place. Greater precision than the instrument is not to be implied. Okay, similar, the same thing. So there's no point in saying mean reduction in blood pressure was 12.246. So this kind of a thing, you should be very careful. Next, how to select the appropriate figure. One is a line diagram. So this can be where you show the time course. It could be a bar chart, or you can present comparative data in different groups in pie chart. Illustrate the division, which illustrates division of whole into segments, or a scatter diagram. So these are some of the things which you can choose. I'm just giving you a few. If you go into Excel, into the graph, you will see so many types of graphs. So you want to show the time course of an event. Here is the time, and you want to show how, something, temperature is dipping or number of cases are this thing. This is the best way you can show. Similarly, simple bar diagram you can use to present comparative data of different groups. Here we are using error bars to denote the variation. See, this is another bar chart, but this error bars will tell you whether you have used the SD or whatever it is. Height of students. So this is a histogram, which is commonly used to show the frequency distribution of a set of continuous data. Scatter diagram to show the relationship or association between two continuous variables. So there are two variables, both are continuous variables, and you want to show the association. What is the relationship or association between the two? So these are some of the uses. Now, if you have a figure like this, nobody will want to, try and break it up. So don't make your figure so complicated that nobody will want to even look at it. Now look at this table. This is a table where they have given age-wise prevalence of anemia. This is the age in years, this is the prevalence. Okay. Now look at this. This is the same data, but this is in the form of a bar chart. So which one would you prefer? A table or a bar chart? Tell me please. Which one will you prefer?
Bar chart is looking better to see.
Table I'll prefer.
Looking better, right?
I'll prefer bar chart.
Bar chart, okay. Why? Why
At a
not
glance, we can just see which bar is coming out. Which,
True.
yeah.
True, very true. So the idea of having a table or a figure is which one is easier to understand. If you have a graph like this, you can see very quickly, you can see, okay, highest percentage of anemia is prevalence is in 12 to 13 years, isn't it? Next will be 14 to 15, you can see. So you know which group is highest. If you look at the previous one, the table, you'll have to go through, okay, this is 51. Is there anything which is 51? So the table, the bar chart is projecting your data the way you want it to be seen. So look at this. Prevalence of presenting complaints in portal hypertensive gastropathy. So these are the complaints and this is the percentage. This is given as a bar chart. This is given as a horizontal bar. Same data as table, vertical bar and horizontal bar. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you prefer?
For me, it is horizontal.
Horizontal. Why?
Again,
because very easily you can see this, isn't it?
Easy
Yes,
to
it's easy
get.
to identify and you can easily read. You don't have to crick your neck and reading this because this is at right angles to the x-axis, isn't it? So you need to choose the kind of figure which you will want to have for your figure. You need to also use stark contrasting colors or designs. For example, look at this. This light blue, dark blue, you can barely see it. Whereas if you have this kind of color, red and blue, it's very easy to see. So have contrasting colors. If you are using only black and white, doesn't matter. Make sure this black and white is very clear. Okay, if you have these kind of figures with this kind of contrast, you can't easily see. So better to have this kind of contrast. So if you are using color, it should be visible, very brilliantly contrasting. Anything wrong with this illustration?
Patient's identity is visible, ma'am.
Yeah. So this needs to be closed. So you should mask the identity and you should ask for informed consent for publishing it in a paper. So what are the things which people are going to assess, especially if you are writing a paper? Some of the things which are distinct is whether the text, table and figure there is agreeable. Because sometimes in the text you say we started out with 213 participants. If you add up in the table, it will come to some 220 or there will be less. Sometimes, especially if it is a paper, they don't want you to repeat its table or figure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Data is given in greater accuracy than the measurement, as I told you. Something point that. Central tendency, variation. What is the central tendency? Is the variation SD or SC? Or are you giving the spread as confidence intervals? So all these things are assessed by the reviewer in results. Okay? So make sure that you check whether there is a discrepancy in the figures. That is something which really people get angry about. So coming to the elements of the results, text tells the story. The table summarizes the evidence and the data, and the figures will highlight the main findings. This is what I told you already. So choose the most appropriate element to describe the given results. And even in the element, if you are choosing a figure, choose the most appropriate figure to describe the results. That is what I want you to understand. So there are three components. One is the baseline characteristics. Second part answers the research question. Third part describes other findings. So report only those results which can be supported by data that has been collected and analyzed. You cannot add results for which you have not collected data or for which you don't have the data to say that. So this is very important also. So this guy says that the examiner is telling the student, you probably have stumbled on a really wonder drug. Otherwise, how would rats under the materials and methods section get transformed into mice in the results section? So that's all I have for results. If there is any question you want to answer, I'll be happy to. Yeah. Yes, please.
If any queries there, the questions are invited. Please.
Any queries? Anyone wants to ask
There
anything?
are certain things which some questions are there in the chat box. Dr. Ravi Kirti has asked, is there any difference between small n and capital N when we are numbering the participants?
Yeah. So this small n and capital N, you can write both. This is mostly a journalistic style. Some people put small n, some people put capital N. As you can see, NEJM, they are putting capital N. So it's all right. It is mostly a stylistic difference. So there is no difference as such. What table format is appropriate? I don't understand. Dr. Amit Patel, would you like to ask me or clarify on this? I don't understand what this is. What table format is appropriate? No?
Ma'am, probably he might be asking about APA format or like that.
Okay.
Which
so
is nowadays.
so the thing is, see, for a thesis, your dean's office might give you some format, but otherwise you can, look at any good journal and you can simply follow the format they are following, and that's fine. I don't think anyone can find fault with that. Okay. Any other question? Because we have a longish, thing to do about discussion.
Just one question.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, then sometimes we have. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Ma'am, sometimes we have certain results in a table which we have a very little value, and we don't want to represent them. Some say comorbidities of a population that have come out to be very less in a certain group, and we have not represented them in a table. So even without there being certain elements in the table, can we just go ahead and discuss them in the text?
Okay. We are talking of the results section, right?
Yes,
so in the results section, if you don't want to put something in it as a table, you can always write it in a text. What I'm trying to say is, don't put the same thing in the text, in the table, in the figure, the same information. Nothing is preventing you from not putting it in a table or not giving it a figure, but describing it in the form of a text. You can go ahead. Okay, I come to the next.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can have the next session, please.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. This is about the discussion. And as you know that, I hope that by the end, you will be able to explain the purpose of discussion. What are the elements? what are the do's and don'ts, how to do the do's and how to avoid the don'ts, and generally how to guide your student to write a good discussion in the thesis. So this is my outline. It's a little big and because it is a little complicated, so we'll take it very slowly. So this is the most difficult part to write for anyone. You might be a really, person who has a lot of confidence, but even for good people who have a lot of experience, discussion is difficult to write. There is a lack of formal attention to structure because there is no explicit structure which is given to this. But you also need to have good depth of knowledge. That is why it is very difficult for students to write it, because they don't have the adequate depth of knowledge and writing skills to write this. Generally, this is passed on from senior authors to junior authors. And then you need to be patient and prepared to do many drafts. So the discussion section answers the question, so what? So in the IMRAD format, we ask the question, so what? What did you find? Okay, so what is the implication of all that you have done? So the purpose of the discussion is to emphasize new and important aspects of the study and the conclusions that follow them in the context of the totality of the best available evidence. This has been given by the ICMJE. So you emphasize the new and important aspects. And what are the conclusions which follow what you have found? Okay. And this has to be done in the context of totality of the best available evidence. So because you're comparing what you have got with whatever other people have got. Now, one important thing is you should not repeat in detail data or other information given in the introduction or the results section. Common mistake people do is simply to repeat what they found in the results in the discussion section. This section is used to interpret the results. You already have a results section in which you have given the results. You need to interpret this. Now, interpretation can easily go wrong. Here is a researcher who's taking the photo. From top, he's taking photo. This is on day 1. He's taking another photo on day 10. He's taking a photo on day 20. And he's taking a photo on day 30. So when he has taken this is the results. He's simply taking the photo to see what will happen. And then when he's interpreting it is that quarantine makes the feet smaller. Okay. So why I'm saying is interpretation is the hallmark of a good discussion. So you may ask me, how long should the discussion be? In a manuscript, if a manuscript is 3,000 words, it should be around 900 words. In a thesis, it is expected to be about 4 or 5 pages, about 1,300 to 1,500 words. This is the length of a discussion section. Normally, this is what you expect. So what are the elements? This is very, very important. First is you have to state the main findings. This is the first one which you have to do in your discussion, where you state the main findings. That is, what are the main results? You have to state the main findings will be the first element which you list. Then you compare it with your earlier studies. Third element is you try to tell how strong was this study. What are the strengths and limitations of the study? How can they be generalized? Whatever you have got in this study, can they be generalized to a population? What are the implications for policy or for future research? And what are the conclusions and directions for future research? So these are the elements of a discussion. Stating the main findings, comparing results, how strong was the study, what are the strengths and limitations, generalizability, implications, and conclusions and directions for future research. Now, if you look at it, this is usually included in the strengths, so you can forget about this. Okay, so 1 down. Because when you say how strong was the study, you want to say whether your sample size was good, how did you address the biases and so on. So this becomes how strong was the study. Implications, this is generally included in the conclusions. Okay, what are the implications? What is the future research? this can generally go into the conclusion. So therefore, this is left with main findings, compare results with earlier studies, strengths, limitations, generalizability, conclusions, and directions. So this is the 5 elements. So let's come to this main findings. So what do you do? In the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, you state the central findings of whatever you have got as the answer to the research question. That is the first thing which you do. Don't give the objectives, don't give the results, don't give the study design. You are telling what you have found. So you don't repeat the results, but the main result to the question which you raised, research question, you have to tell that in a different way. Make a direct, succinct, declarative statement of the main findings and explain the meaning of your findings and why they are important. So in this, state the main results. This is what you are expected to write. So why they are important? What is the meaning of the finding? Why are they important? Can I find similar studies which say the same thing? Can there be some alternate explanation of the findings? Some things are going with the similar findings, some are not. So can I find a different explanation for the finding? Is it clinically relevant? Whatever you have found, do you think it is clinically relevant? And you need to report unexpected and negative findings. So when you are talking of the findings of your work, all these constitute the findings. Okay. It is not just saying that this is for the principal objective, this is the thing, secondary objectives, we found this. But all this, meanings of the finding, related findings in similar studies, alternate explanations, clinical relevance of the finding, and unexpected and negative findings. So I'm just taking one paper again from NEJM. This is a study which they have done, catheter ablation for atrial fibrillation with heart failure. So what they have done is they have initiated catheter ablation versus standard conventional therapy in patients with left ventricular dysfunction and atrial fibrillation. So this was a trial which they have done. And what have they done? In the discussion, what do they do? Look at the first sentence in the discussion. In the CASTLE-AF trial, we found that the use of ablation for atrial fibrillation in patients with heart failure was associated with a significantly lower rate of composite of death and hospitalization for heart failure than medical therapy. So the first sentence clearly outlines what they found. This is the main finding of the study. The second finding, second sentence, we also found that there was a benefit in all-cause mortality alone, which was driven by a significantly lower rate of cardiovascular death in the ablation. So this is the secondary finding. So what did I say? First thing is you have to state your main findings, and this is exactly what they have done in this paper. Okay. Now they go on to say, several trials have reported improvements in soft endpoints with catheter ablation. So what are they doing? They're trying to compare what they have found with other studies, isn't it? So comparing with other studies, that is the second aspect which they have done. Whatever they have found, now they're trying to compare with other studies. So this can easily be seen in any good paper, in any of these good journals. In the CASTLE-AF trial, in contrast to previous trials, we evaluated the hard primary endpoint of death or hospitalization. So what are they saying? Now they are saying what is the strength of their study. In other studies, they did not find hard primary endpoints, but here we looked at death or hospitalization. And they're saying that they followed up patients to assess long-term outcomes. So they're talking about the strengths of their study. In this study, we looked at hard primary outcomes and we followed up for a longer period. So they're telling what did we do differently from others, which was our strength. They are writing this the third point. Okay. Now they are writing, one of the limitations of our trial is the lack of blinding. So I told you, you have to write the strengths and the limitations. So here, very easily they are saying the limitation of our trial is the lack of blinding. So that could have been a bias. They are clearly saying that. So you need also to talk about the limitations of your study. And then finally, they are concluding. So they are saying, how are they concluding? They are saying what they found. So we have found this, we have found this, and lower rates of this thing to reduce the burden. So these are the elements. Main findings, comparing with earlier studies, strengths, limitations, conclusions. So if you have these 5 elements in your discussion, you cannot go wrong. You must, pound this into every resident. This is the 5 things which you need. So how do you start writing this? This is what I do. When I start writing a discussion, I put discussion, I open the page and I write each of the elements. Main findings, comparing with other studies, strengths, limitations, conclusions. And under each you start writing. Finish. Check for overlap. At least you know that all the elements are there, and then you remove the subtitles. Okay. So now what do you avoid in a discussion? One is you should not overinterpret the results. Whatever you have got as the results, you must, you can't say you have done this study in Bhubaneswar and can't expect something to be generalized to the whole world. Okay? So don't overinterpret. Unwarranted speculation. We have found this, so therefore we will be able to find this. That is unwarranted speculation. Inflating the importance of these findings. You have found this. Supposing you have done some study in, some herbal medicine in mice. Don't think that this will cause a cure for something. You have done something, it has caused a fall in blood sugar in mice. Don't say, I have found the cure for diabetes mellitus. Okay? You should avoid tangential issues, means issues which are not important, which may be very remotely, connected. Don't try to write too much about it. And then don't introduce new data which has not been presented in the results. So in the discussion, you need to write only about data which is presented in the results. You cannot introduce new data in the discussion and talk about that. So these are some of the things which you need to avoid in a discussion. Now, overinterpretation of results. I'm just giving you an example. The conclusion, when you make a conclusion, it should take into account the bias in the sample selection, like how they're saying. We did not have control group. We were not blinded. Patients were not blinded. So that brings in a kind of a bias. So you need to take that into account when you're drawing conclusions. Results may show an increase or decrease, which is not statistically proven. So unless it is statistically proven, don't say we have a significant result. Similarly, if you have found something from Bhubaneswar, you cannot extrapolate it even to the whole of Odisha. So over-interpretation of results should be avoided. And then, some people write very bad things about, the other authors. This you should avoid, because everyone is scientific. So whatever you are writing, be very scientific in criticism. You can criticize the work, but the words which you should use should be very, very carefully chosen. Don't have conclusions which are not supported by your data. That is what I was saying. Something might cause an increase, but if it is not statistically valid, please don't say it was we found a significant difference. It is not. And then there's no need to preach to the reader, because this is a scientific paper. So you don't have to write about, how good you are and, say what a wonderful area of work which you have chosen and things like that. That should be avoided. I'm giving you an example. If you look, there was a publication, and look at these publications. So there were 2 groups, one yoga group and a control group, and they found that the yoga group did much better. But actually and they reported it as such. But when you looked at it, they found that there was a difference in the yoga group pre and post for the yoga group. There was no difference when you compared the yoga group and the control group. So this is what happens. People don't use the appropriate statistical test. So pre and post, you can't compare, if you are having 2 groups, you are having 2 groups to compare both of them. You can't compare only within a group and say that it was significant, isn't it? So these are some of the ways in which people write papers and their conclusions are not actually supported by the data which they have. So you need to interpret scientifically. So many times you are asked this question, is the glass half full? Some will say it is half full, some will say it is half empty. But technically speaking, the glass is always full because there is water and there is air. So if I say, is the glass half full or half empty with water? That is what I can ask. But technically, glass is always full. So you need to interpret scientifically. You may want to interpret like that. I like to say things like this. I'm not overweight, but I am under tall kind of a thing. But that is not science. Science is interpreting the results honestly and scientifically. So if you're not having a difference, make sure you do post-hoc power calculation before you say there is no difference. So if you do a post-hoc power calculation and your power is still at 85% or 90%, then you can say, yes, I am saying that there is no difference between my control and test groups. Also, you need to look at who your controls are. Are they really healthy? What is your setting like? Was it a community setting? Was it an institutional setting? Your sampling frame? Were there any biases about the use of tools? Sometimes we use tools which we have just taken from the West and it doesn't fit into our cultural ethos and so on. So a lot of things go into interpreting your results. So be very careful when you're interpreting your results. So the aim of research is actually to find out the true value. So true value of anything. So it becomes very difficult because the true value may not be the value which you have found, and you know that also. So what are the common mistakes in the discussion? We write it as if we are doing a review of literature. It's another common mistake. Discussion is not a review of literature. Many people hide the limitations of the study because they say, if I tell the limitations, people will think it is a bad study. That is not so, because it is science. What are your conclusions despite the limitations of your study? Then sometimes you want to only cherry pick the ones which you want to write. So you take only the results which you want to discuss. That is not good. Sometimes you rewrite the results because the results is what you are rewriting as a part. So review of literature, some people rewrite the results in the discussion, and many times your conclusions do not match with the objectives. Somebody who's reading your conclusions should go, this is the conclusion, this is the objectives. They must see whether it matches with your objectives, primary and secondary objectives. So in your conclusion, some people get confused between discussion and the conclusion. Conclusion is a summary of everything you have said so far. That is your conclusion. So sometimes you will need to write a conclusion which might be one paragraph or one or two paragraphs. And then you can restate your hypothesis or research question. You can restate your major findings and tell the reader what contribution your study has made to the existing literature. You can also highlight any limitations of your study and state the future directions for research or policy recommendations in the conclusion. So this will go into your last paragraph. Okay? Because a conclusion is like, it's not a summary totally, because in a summary, you will also have to tell what your objectives were, what your methodology was, and things like that. That is not going to be there. But here, you are only going to talk about these things, your hypothesis, the major findings, these will be restated. What was the contribution your study made, any limitations, and what are the future directions. So you can use the standardized reporting guidelines. Some of you might know what it is. They are tools to report research. So you can use, there are different guidelines for different study designs. As you can see, they are really versatile tools. Because when you're reporting, even in your thesis part, you use your reporting guidelines. If let's say your thesis is an observational study, or if it is a clinical trial, you can use the appropriate guideline and see in each section what goes into it. They are really very good. And it can be used not just for designing the protocol or reporting, it can be used for other things also. So this is a very good thing. This is what is known as the consort statement. Some of you may be familiar with it. So you can use this to see whether all the aspects of that section have been So for each reporting guideline study design, you can get from this Equator network. And as you can see, this reporting guidelines for different study types, you have different reporting guidelines. So I'll conclude by saying the discussion section allows the authors to explain what the study means to them. And you need to keep to these 5 elements which I told you about. You can use reporting guidelines. I generally find they are very, very helpful. And you need to avoid the common mistakes like repeating the review of literature or repeating the results. If you keep this in mind, you'll be able to write a good discussion session. So thank you very much. And with that, I finish my 3 sessions which I have taken. I hope you have found it useful, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, Pradeep here.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Pradeep.
conclusion should be written separately or it should be part of discussion itself? Or it depends on the article where we are sending the work?
Generally, in a research paper, it is a part of your discussion. Conclusion is the last part of the discussion in a research paper. In a thesis, generally, they expect you to have a separate section on conclusions. It depends on your academic section. They may ask you to have a separate section on conclusions. Then you might need to write 1 or 2 pages, which will be the conclusion. PhD thesis, generally, there is a conclusion section, which is after the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I think people are fed up of listening to me. Any
No,
other
not
question?
at all.
Yeah?
It was really worth listening.
Madam, I have one question.
Yes, Dr. Amit. Yes, please.
Yeah, regarding mentioning of limitation of the study, should be a separate part written in the thesis, or it should form the part of the conclusion or summary? Limitation of the study should be a separate, distinct point in thesis, or it should be along with the summary or conclusion?
No. See, that's what I told you. See, limitations becomes part of the discussion. So your discussion will have these 5 elements where you state the main findings, you compare it with other studies, what are the strengths of the studies with the limitations. So discussion will have strengths and limitations are a part of the elements of the discussion. You must have you don't have to put a title. Okay, as this thing. I showed you that paper, no? So limitations will be a part of your discussion. Okay. Because what you are trying to say is that these are the conclusions I have made despite the limitations of my study. That is what you come on.
Okay. I have another question, madam.
Yes, please.
The format of table. What should be the format of table we should write in our thesis? Like whether it should be a APA style. I mean, we here are recommending APA style. What should be the ideal format of the table in a thesis?
No, so if you're recommending the APA style, go ahead. There is no, as I told you, there is no, these are all styles. So some people will say you must have, you must put horizontal lines. Some people will say put vertical lines and things like that. So it doesn't matter. Whatever style your academic section asks you to follow, you please follow that. There is no hard and fast rule. These are just styles. It will change from journal to journal. It might change from institution to institution.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
But whatever I have told you, those are the general rules. Like it must have a number, table number must be there. It has to have a title. Footnotes must be this thing. Table must stand alone. These are all general things which are sort of there for everything. You understand?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thing?
Ma'am, one more question.
Yes,
ma'am,
please.
in discussion, is there limitation of number of studies which we compare with our study?
No, the numbers, there is no number. Okay. No, there are no numbers. But the thing is, no, if you have some very large numbers, it is better to choose, good studies. So instead of going for the numbers, it is better to choose good.
The recent ones. And ma'am, is it necessary to write the place from where it was done? After writing the this X et al. And the place of study, or just writing the X et al. Has done this and this shows this with our study? Place of the study.
There is no need. See, it depends on what is it that you want to highlight.
Okay, ma'am.
So supposing it was somewhere in India where you feel that it has some connection to your research question, you may want to say. But otherwise, there is no need. And whether you want to put this, the name, see, if you're using the APA, this thing, you might put the author's name. But if you're using a Vancouver format, you might not, you might simply, talk about the study and then put the cite the reference number. So it depends on what style you're following.
Okay, thank you.
So I think
yes,
we would like to finish the session at this point, and I would like to thank Dr. Gitanjali for her time and so much dedication I have seen in her sessions, that she patiently answered all the questions from our faculty members. This session was really very much relevant to all of us, and I wish that our residents who are PG students and of course residents also, if they would have attended this session, it would have been of great help for them. But since we do have a recording and we can make them understand the facts which are most important for them to understand, this will be of great importance for them too. So with these, I think we need to from all of us, on behalf of AIIMS Patna, we thank you very much, ma'am, for your wonderful sessions, and it was really worth listening. And it was never boring at any point of time. I could see what madam was saying, that we are fed up. We are not at all fed up, and we wish that there should be another session from your end, madam, that how to prepare a presentation, because I just loved your presentation. I hope this is the same opinion and view from all of the faculty members, that your presentations were so beautifully made, self-explanatory presentations, that it made us bound to the session, and we were never bored during the session. This was really a great thing. So if at all, madam, if you have time, please do give us some instructions and some good points to how to make a good presentation.
Sure,
if faculty members, I think, will be 100% agreeing to this very point, that I have seen many sessions, I have attended many scientific presentations, but your presentation looks really, really beautiful. I mean, it makes the listener, the attendees, bound to the session. This is the opinion Dr. Ravi Kirti is also responding. I think every one of us will feel the same. We are on the same page for this purpose. And please do let me know if you can just guide us to make how the presentation should be made. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time.
Namaste and have a good
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.